Looking back, the red flags were always there. My mother-in-law Sandra's constant hints about her financial struggles while wearing new Gucci, her dramatic sighs about barely making ends meet between monthly spa weekends. But it wasn't until she demanded our life savings that my husband David finally revealed he'd known about her secret millions all along. It started at what should have been a normal Sunday dinner. Sandra arrived in her new Mercedes, dressed head to toe in designer labels, to inform us she was on the brink of financial ruin. "The market crash has devastated me," she said, dabbing at dry eyes with a $400 handkerchief. "I might lose the house. I need help from my only son." I saw David's jaw tighten slightly. A tell I'd learned meant he was holding something back. But he just listened as his mother laid out her demands. "I need $200,000, she announced. "It's not much, considering all I've done for you. I put you through college, gave you the down payment for your first car." "Mom," David interrupted quietly, "I worked my way through college on a scholarship. And I bought my first car myself." Sandra waved this inconvenient truth away. "Details. The point is, I'm your mother. And I know you and Rachel have that much in your savings account." That got my attention. How did she know the exact amount in our account? "I have my ways of staying informed," she said, smiling at my expression. "A mother needs to know these things." "Now, about transferring that money." "No." David's voice was calm but firm. Sandra's perfectly made-up face twisted in shock. "What did you say to me?" "I said no, Mom. We're not giving you our savings." That's when the mask came off. Sandra's cultivated image of elegant sophistication vanished, replaced by something harder and colder. "Listen to me very carefully," she hissed. "Either you transfer that money to my account by tomorrow, or I'm writing you out of my will. Everything I own will go to charity. Is that what you want?" David reached for his laptop bag. "Actually, Mom, let's talk about everything you own." "What are you doing?" she demanded as he opened his computer. "Something I should have done years ago," he said, typing briefly before turning the screen toward her. "Let's start with your account in the Cayman Islands. The one with $876,000 in it." The color drained from Sandra's face. "Or maybe we should discuss your Swiss account." David continued. "Another $945,000 there. Oh, and let's not forget the one in Singapore. That's got what? About $500,000. "How dare you spy on me?" Sandra sputtered, but David wasn't finished. "Then there are the shell companies, 3 of them, all routing money through various tax havens. You've been quite busy, Mom. Does your financial advisor, Mr. Peterson, know about these? Or should I say, your secret boyfriend, Mr. Peterson?" I sat there stunned as my husband methodically laid out evidence of his mother's hidden wealth. Bank statements, property records, corporate filings, he had everything. "How long have you known?" I whispered. "Since Dad died," David replied, not taking his eyes off his mother. "When I found evidence she'd been hiding money from him for years. Money that should have gone to his medical care." Sandra's face had gone from pale to mottled red. "You had no right." "No right?" David's voice finally showed emotion. "Like you had no right to let Dad think we couldn't afford better cancer treatments. He died thinking we were struggling while you had millions hidden away." The pieces started falling into place. Sandra's constant claims of financial hardship, her guilt trips about money, her luxurious lifestyle that never quite matched her widow's pension story. "It was my money to protect," she said defensively. "Your father would have spent it all on doctors and experimental treatments." "Yes," David said quietly, "he would have spent it trying to stay alive for his family. Instead, you watched him die while counting your offshore millions." Sandra switched tactics, turning to me with tears in her eyes. "Rachel, surely you understand. A woman needs to protect herself." "Don't," David cut her off. "Don't try to manipulate Rachel. I've watched you play these games my whole life. The fake poverty, the guilt trips, the threats about your will. It ends today." "You ungrateful," Sandra began, but froze as David held up a USB drive. "Complete records of your hidden accounts," he said. "Every transfer, every shell company, every tax law you've broken. Mr. Peterson helped me compile it all." "John would never." She stopped, realizing her mistake in naming her financial advisor. "No, he wouldn't," David agreed. "But it turns out Mr. Peterson has a conscience. When he realized you'd hidden money that could have saved Dad, he came to me with everything." Sandra grabbed her designer purse, standing so quickly her chair fell backward. You're bluffing. You wouldn't turn in your own mother. Try me, David said softly. Test whether I inherited your capacity for ruthlessness or Dad's sense of justice. Make your choice carefully, Mom. She stared at him for a long moment, this son she thought she could manipulate forever. Then her face hardened into something ugly and true. You think you've won, she spat. You think exposing my money matters. I still have power. I still have connections. By the time I'm done, you'll wish. Mom, David interrupted, touching a key on his laptop. That wasn't a threat. It was a courtesy warning. I sent copies of everything to the IRS 10 minutes ago. Sandra's face went from rage to terror in an instant. You didn't. I did. They're particularly interested in the $2.3 million you've hidden from them. Oh, and the SEC wants to discuss some questionable stock trades made through your shell companies. As if on cue, Sandra's phone buzzed. She looked at it, and what little color remained in her face drained away. Those will be the federal agents, David said calmly. They're waiting outside. I suggested they give us a few minutes for this family discussion before executing their search warrants. The next 48 hours were a blur of federal agents, seized computers, and Sandra's increasingly desperate attempts to regain control. They found boxes of evidence in her house that told a story far darker than even David had suspected. Your mother wasn't just hiding money, Agent Martinez explained, spreading documents across our kitchen table. She was running a sophisticated financial fraud operation. Those shell companies weren't just tax havens. They were part of an investment scam targeting other wealthy widows. David sat silently, reviewing years of his mother's carefully documented deceptions. Sandra had used her status as a grieving widow to infiltrate support groups, where she convinced other widows to invest in her exclusive opportunities, all while hiding millions that could have saved her husband's life. How much did she steal? I asked quietly. Initial estimates put it at around $5 million from 15 victims, Martinez replied. She used her husband's death as her credentials, told them she'd learned financial independence the hard way and wanted to help other widows secure their futures. The irony was bitter. While Sandra played the struggling widow to scam others, she'd watched her husband die believing they couldn't afford better treatment. The evidence was damning. $2.3 million in offshore accounts, $5 million stolen from other widows, 3 shell companies, fake investment portfolios, forged financial documents, hidden luxury assets. But it was her personal diary that revealed the true depth of her calculated cruelty. She had written detailed notes about manipulating David. David's guilt over his father's death makes him vulnerable to financial pressure. Remind him regularly about family obligation. The threat of disinheritance should keep him compliant. When David read that entry, something broke in him. She used Dad's death as a tool, he whispered. Even after he was gone, she used him to manipulate me. Sandra's arrest made local headlines. Wealthy widow's secret millions. Mother-son confrontation exposes investment scam. Her society friends vanish overnight. Her country club membership was revoked. Her carefully crafted image of grieving sophistication shattered. But Sandra had one last card to play. If you drop the charges, her lawyer offered, she'll make full restitution to her victims and name David as her sole heir. All the hidden millions would eventually be his. David's response was immediate. Tell her to keep her blood money. I want her to face justice. That's when Sandra launched her smear campaign. She called every relative, claiming David had stolen her retirement funds and fabricated evidence against her. She painted herself as the victim of her ungrateful son and his gold-digging wife. How could you do this to your mother? David's Aunt Susan raged over the phone. After everything she sacrificed for you. Sacrificed? David's voice was deadly quiet. Let me tell you what she really sacrificed, Aunt Susan. She sacrificed Dad's life to keep her millions hidden. Want to see the proof? He sent her the medical records, the treatment options they couldn't afford, the experimental therapy that might have saved his father, all while Sandra had millions sitting untouched in offshore accounts. Susan never called back. The FBI investigation revealed even more layers to Sandra's deception. She had been planning to use our $200,000 savings as seed money for her next investment scam. Her demand for money wasn't about need, It was about establishing a paper trail she could show to future victims. "See," she would have said, "my own son trusts me with his savings. This investment opportunity is completely safe." Mr. Peterson, her financial advisor turned informant, provided the final pieces of the puzzle. "She approached me about setting up new shell companies last month," he testified. "Said she had fresh capital coming in from her son. She was planning to double her operation." When confronted with the evidence, Sandra's sophisticated facade finally cracked. "You ungrateful brat," she screamed at David during a preliminary hearing. "Everything I did was for you. You were supposed to inherit it all." "No, Mom," David replied calmly. "Everything you did was for yourself. Dad died thinking we were too poor to save him, while you hoarded millions. That's not love. That's evil." The prosecutor laid out Sandra's method in detail. Target grieving widows and support groups. Build trust through shared loss. Mention her successful investment strategies. Use her luxurious lifestyle as proof. Convince them to invest in her fake companies. Route their money through offshore accounts. Offer small returns to encourage larger investments. Disappear with the money, leaving them devastated. "Your mother wasn't just a fraudster," Agent Martinez told David. "She was a predator who used grief as a weapon. She targeted people at their most vulnerable moment." As the evidence mounted, Sandra's remaining supporters fell away. Her social circle, already crumbling, disintegrated completely when they learned she'd been secretly recording their financial conversations for potential blackmail. "She has files on everyone," her housekeeper revealed. "Bank accounts, affairs, illegal tax schemes. She called it her insurance policy." David took the news stoically, but I found him late that night in his father's old study, holding a family photo and crying. "He died thinking we couldn't afford to save him," he kept saying. "He died believing that lie." Sandra's sentencing hearing was scheduled for a cold Tuesday morning in December. She arrived in court wearing a modest black dress instead of her usual designer clothes, playing the role of the repentant mother one last time. "Your Honor," she pleaded, tears flowing perfectly on cue, "I only wanted to secure my family's future after losing my beloved husband. Everything I did was for my son." The prosecutor wasn't having it. He played a recording from Sandra's phone, captured just last week during a jail visit with her sister. "These idiots actually believe I care about them." Sandra's voice rang through the courtroom. "The grieving widows, my stupid son. Even that judge, they're all just pawns. Once I get out, I'll rebuild everything. I've still got accounts they haven't found." The judge's face hardened. "Mrs. Harrison, you show no remorse for defrauding vulnerable widows. More disturbing, you allowed your husband to die believing you couldn't afford treatment while hiding millions that could have saved his life. This court sentences you to 15 years in federal prison." As they led her away, Sandra made one final attempt to manipulate her son. "David, tell them about your father. Tell them how he would have forgiven me." David stood up slowly. "You're right, Mom. Dad would have forgiven you. That's exactly why you don't deserve forgiveness." The aftermath brought unexpected healing. The FBI recovered most of Sandra's hidden money, returning it to her victims. David used his portion to establish a foundation in his father's name, providing financial assistance to cancer patients seeking experimental treatments. "She hid money that could have saved lives," he explained at the foundation's launch. "Now that money will save others. It's what Dad would have wanted." Sandra's victims formed a support group, helping each other recover from both financial and emotional trauma. Many attended the foundation's opening, turning their pain into purpose. "Your mother's crimes brought us together," one widow told David. "But your response to those crimes is healing us." We found more evidence of Sandra's manipulation in her personal files. She kept detailed notes on everyone in her life, categorizing them by exploitable weaknesses. David uses guilt over father's death, remind him of family duty. Me wants family acceptance, use threat of rejection. Her victims, recent widows most vulnerable, target within first year of loss. Reading those clinical assessments of human grief was chilling. Sandra hadn't seen people, she'd seen opportunities for exploitation. The most devastating discovery came 3 months after her sentencing. Hidden in a safety deposit box, we found letters from David's father written during his final days. He'd known about some of Sandra's hidden money but kept quiet to protect David. "I could expose her," he'd written, but she'd find a way to blame David. Better I take this knowledge to my grave than let her poison my son's life with guilt. David read those letters alone in his father's study, finally understanding the complexity of his parents' marriage. His father had sacrificed everything, even a chance at survival, to protect his son from Sandra's manipulation. 1 year after Sandra's imprisonment, we held a memorial service for David's father, not the rushed funeral Sandra had insisted on, but a proper celebration of his life. Friends shared stories of his kindness, his integrity, his quiet strength. "Your father knew about my gambling problem," his best friend confessed. "Instead of exposing me, he helped me get treatment, said everyone deserves a chance to be better." David spoke last, his voice steady. "My father died thinking we couldn't afford treatment that might have saved him. My mother had the money but chose to hide it. Today we honor him by using that money to help others fight cancer. His death won't be meaningless." Sandra still writes sometimes, always with a new angle. Her latest letter claimed she's found God and wants to make amends. The check she included for the foundation bounced, of course. But her power over us is gone. The foundation is thriving, having helped 32 families access experimental cancer treatments in its first year. 3 of those patients are now in remission. David keeps his father's letters in his desk drawer, not as a reminder of Sandra's betrayal, but as proof of his father's love. "Dad sacrificed everything to protect me from her," he told me. "The best way to honor him is to help others." Sandra will be eligible for parole in 12 years. Sometimes I wonder if she spends her days in prison plotting her next scam, or if she ever truly regrets letting her husband die to protect her millions. But then I look at the lives being saved by the foundation, at the healing happening in spite of her cruelty, and I realize it doesn't matter. Her greed destroyed one life, but because of David's courage, that money is now saving many others. It's not the legacy Sandra intended, but it's the justice his father deserved. Last week, another cancer patient went into remission thanks to treatment funded by the foundation. When David heard the news, he placed a photo of his father on his desk and smiled through tears. "See that, Dad?" he whispered. "Your death wasn't for nothing. Every life we save is a victory over her greed. Every person we help is proof that love wins in the end."